Today for our Adventure Masterclass series, I am working with Jaxx, and he is a 2-year-old German Shepherd, and he is huge. I honestly forget how much he weighs. I think the owner said between 110 and 130. Either way, after 100 pounds, it's a big dog. So we need some stopping power. We need some brakes. So I am starting with a slip leash long line. This is a 20-foot leash, and I have it wrapped around my butt. So that way I have really good stopping power with him. I can kind of sit on the long leash if he starts to take me somewhere. I also opted for the shorter leash because instead of a 30-foot leash, I opted for the 20-foot leash. That way he can't get as much momentum to take me somewhere. So we are just starting with the long leash. We are building some connection. I'm getting some of this energy out. He's been to this park a couple times, but we're just kind of walking around. As he's getting to the end of the line, I'm just turning, telling him, let's go. Now, his owner has done a ton of work with him. She's done a ton of work herself. So this should all be review for him, and we are just kind of letting that silliness come out. So I'm basically starting to build a little bit of rapport. So when he gets ahead of me, I back up and yes him when he looks. So kind of like our yes game, but we're just building a lot of pack drive. We're building collaboration in being outside and at this park together. So we're just backing up. When he looks, I'm saying yes, and then offering a treat. The big thing that Jaxx's owner wanted me to work on with Jaxx is that when he sees somebody or something he wants to say hi to, he's super friendly, but he will dive in on the end of that leash and just take you for a ride. So right now, Jaxx has on the slip leash is the only attachment I have to him. So it's just a 20-foot long slip leash. He also has a flat collar on. I think it's a martingale. And then he also has a prong collar on because the owner had used a prong collar in the past with a previous trainer. I just had it on just to get him into the space. But really what's happening with the prong collar is he's just become very, very dull to it. But as you can see, we just have a really small slip leash on him, and he can be very sensitive and soft to that pressure. So I'm just kind of rebuilding that muscle memory for him that when you feel pressure, you need to relax. And also you need to pay attention to my space. If I'm backing up and inviting you in, that's a cue to turn your attention towards me. Here's where I start to work on maybe pushing him around in a turn towards him, and he doesn't really love that as much. But this is where we're going to start with training. We have 4 master classes that we're doing with him. So 4 hours of training. And I'm really hoping that after today's session that we can meet somewhere a little bit more exciting, because Jaxx has a ton of cool skills. We just need to diversify them across a bunch of different environments and really get him just in a place where he's comfortable observing people rather than interacting with every single person he sees and every distraction that comes about. So this is the part where I'm starting to move into him, and what I'd love for him to do is yield and move away from my space. But as you can see, there's a little bit of a competition where he says, I don't think I totally want to follow you. And as I start to lose him, I back up and invite him back in. So I'm kind of always at the point where I'm inviting him into the conversation, and once he agrees to be part of the conversation, I try to keep his interest in the conversation by offering that structure and leadership of moving around him, getting him to yield his feet to me, all of that cool stuff. So this is the kind of thing that happens when we get past yes game, when we get past the invitation. Now, there is a difference between racing your dog through this and moving into them and moving faster. So whenever I start to feel like I'm losing control of the turn towards him, I back up and invite him in again. Now here, I also adjusted my stance a little bit. I kind of faced him just a hair more. That way I could maybe get him to yield. So there I lost control. So I backed up, invited him back in, and you're going to see a ton of that throughout this video where I'm just losing his focus just a little bit. So I back up and invite him in. About half the time I'm yesing and treating. The other half of the time I am just letting the connection be the reward, because we're at that point in training with him. Here he's going to do some sniffing and nearly takes out my tripod. So we'll wait till I get that all situated. Oh my goodness.
Don't knock it over.
There we go, bud. So you can maybe hear some dogs barking in the background. This is a good distraction for us to work off of. So I just kind of go back to the same old yes game and invitation. Now he kind of stops taking treats, and when that happens, I use a lot more space, a lot more leash, a lot more energy to reward a dog rather than the treats. So if he gets stuck, I'm going to give him a minute, give him a second to kind of think about all of his options. Then I'm going to add a tiny bit of leash pressure, and back up. And then when he looks at me, yes, I offer a treat. He says, no, thank you. I'm a little overstimulated. So I'm going back to just using my let's go, my turns, my invitation to get him to focus, because as you can see, he's kind of having a hard time finding me again. Now here he peed, and I kind of allowed it at first, but then I was like, no, you don't need to pee right now, because I'm not sure how much of a coincidence it was that he had to pee when the dog started barking. So I just kind of invited him to stop peeing and keep moving, because there's no need for him to be territorial right now. There's no need for him to mark anything. So now that we've let go, or sort of let go, of the dog's barking, I'm moving into his space and seeing if I can yield his feet to mine, which he seems to be doing pretty good. Sometimes it does. I love that. He just looked up and he said, okay, I'm with you. How can I help? Which is lovely. As he starts to leave the conversation, I back up, invite him in. I'm offering treats again if he'll take them. And since he's been doing so well, I'm going to give him a little bit of break. I'm going to basically walk him around the outside of the park. And then I got warm, took my coat off, and now we're going to jump into a little bit of obedience. So Jaxx has had a ton of obedience training. He's very good at it. But the owner says he won't stay very well, which tells me that we just need to work up a little bit of duration and distance with him. Maybe a little bit of distraction. So I'm going to start to lean on his obedience and see how he's doing with that. This also tells me we're probably not using the release word as much as we should. So I'm going to let you just watch this part so you can hear what I'm doing. You can hear how I'm yesing or treating or asking him for things.
Sit. I will take that. Go boy.
So in just a second, I'm about to drop a treat before I give him the release word. So I just give him the release word as soon as I drop the treat. The reason I was standing so weird was because I wanted to be in front of him to be able to push him into a sit, but I also wanted to maintain hold of the leash.
That's it. Yeah. Right here. Right here. Go. Let's go.
I'm starting to notice I feel like he's getting a little disoriented in his ability to find me. So as I back up here, he doesn't immediately come to me. He kind of hangs on the end of the leash and scans the environment. So I continue to back up, ask for him to connect, and when he does, I'll give him a yes and then treat. But this is a lot longer than it usually takes him to connect. Right there, that was lovely. In just a second, you're going to see exactly why I do the loop around the butt, because this dog is stronger than me. So when he really gets stuck on something, I'm able to lean and put my whole body next to it. So that way I have the upper hand and can play a little bit more tug of war with him when it comes to using the leash. My rule of thumb with obedience is to say it once, say it twice, and then guide your dog into the obedience command. A lot of times dogs are just straight A students and they want to do the right thing. They just need help getting there. So I will usually say their name, the command, their name, the command, and then I'm helping to guide them into that position, whether it's a down or a sit. And if they get up from that position before they are given the release word, it's my job to help them get back into that position. So think of it as clocking into work and then clocking out of work. The clock in is just as important as the clock out. So if they start to take a break before I've clocked them out of work, we need to make sure that they go back into it. And this is how you get a really good stay from your dog, rather than just teaching them the sit and the down with a temporary hold that might be a little unclear for your dog. So the break gives super easy clarity to your dog about what's expected of them and how long they're supposed to stay there, so both of you don't end up getting frustrated later. Now here he is just getting a little pushy, so I'm stepping into him, asking for a little bit more space, using my leash pressure to bring him back into a down, and then using a treat to help guide him because I didn't feel like he totally understood what the leash pressure down meant. I'm moving into him a little bit more to ask him to remind him that, hey, something's being asked of you. And then the release word means that he can get up. So these sessions are an hour long, which is actually a really long time and somewhat longer than what I usually like to work with a dog for. Usually I prefer shorter, more frequent sessions, but in this case, we are working for an hour. And when it comes to our working breeds, like our Border Collies, our German Shepherds, Heelers, these guys can work for an hour, and it's usually a pretty good thing for them because that's what they were designed to do. So we are just taking lots of breaks and exploring the rest of the field, going on a little bit of a walk so that he can sniff and just take a break from all of the things he's just learned. If you think about everything else that we do in life, if we just drill it over and over and over again and don't give ourselves that room to breathe and process and think, it can make the task harder. And sometimes when we come back to the task with fresh eyes, it gets a little easier. So that's exactly what we're doing here. I'm letting him have a little sniff break, but then also reminding him that I'm still here with you. And if you could just check back in every now and then, that would be great. I don't film a ton of our sniff walks because it's kind of boring. So a big thing that the owner wanted to work on was getting this leash to work a little bit better for both of them. Now, this was a leash that I had recommended because Jaxx just tends to be a little dull to pressure, especially from the prong collar, and we worked with this leash a ton last year, but he has just kind of fought it and kind of won a lot of those fights. So he has a lot of protest in him about this leash, and my goal here is to get him a lot more comfortable, a lot more soft to it, and to help work him through some of that worry about this leash. And I think a lot of the protest is he just doesn't like it being over top of his nose. And when he has it over his nose, he has to pay attention a little bit more. He has to be a little bit more responsive. So there's a little bit more boundaries in place. And I think all of us, when given the option of less freedom or more freedom, would all choose to have more freedom. So that's kind of the protest that I'm facing with him, is that he prefers to have more freedom and to not be as present. So I use a ton of treats when I get this on. I like to have just treats ready to go to make everything a lot easier for both of us and a lot more collaborative. Now, I know I don't have the stopper all the way down, but I was kind of planning to just have this first session with him be really quick, just get it over his nose, take it off. And in hindsight, as I watch this back, I wish I had taken it a little slower with this first session with it over his nose, because you can see his body language just shut down. He goes from a pant mouth to a closed mouth. His body language is just low. He's not happy. He's feeling a little unsuccessful. So I wish that I would have just given him a moment, but I also kind of knew that I could work him through it because we've worked through this before. And he's a really good dog. We just need to kind of pull that out of him a little bit more and make his world a little bit bigger by helping him work through some of this stress. Ultimately, we're not asking him to do, a ton of work. We're just asking him to become a lot more comfortable with this thing over his nose that asks him to be a little bit more present. So I am starting to ask him to move off of leash pressure. So I'm adding the tiniest amount of a tight leash to see if I can get him to respond off of that sensitivity. I'd rather not have to use a whole lot of force. And as we saw earlier, he can be a very sensitive dog. We just need to make sure that we're using that sensitivity to our advantage. So here you can see there's almost slack in the leash. And when he comes towards me, I treat him for moving off of that really light pressure. My goal is to keep every dog as sensitive as possible so we're not having to use more and more force, because dogs with a lot of muscle, a lot of weight behind them, they can outmuscle us if they really wanted to, and I'm not here to start that fight with him. So here I have a tiny amount of pressure. I even bring it off to the side a little bit more so that he has an easier time turning towards me. When he looks at me, I do a yes and follow up with a treat. So it's the same thing we were doing on the long line. These are skills he has already. The only thing we're doing is we're adding that little bit of pressure over his nose. So after that session, I decided to give him a little break. We went back to the long line. We let him sniff around. We let him have a break from all of the pressure that we are applying. So we're going to go back and try this again. We're going to put leash on. This is where I wish I had some higher value treats, because you can see he's just a little over it. He's not interested in participating. And all I have today with me is puppy food. So I have a treat or two in my hand, and I do feel like there's a little bit of a balance. Ideally, I would have a higher value treat, and I think I'm going to go dig in my pocket for something, anything, beef liver, bison liver, pork heart, something in here that can give me a little bit more leverage, because sometimes dogs will feel like they won't do it for $1, but they might do it for $5. So if we increase the value of our treat, that can really help us increase our dog's participation with it. So I'm trying to get his attention with this treat. I think I found a little bit of beef liver. There, his interest perks up just a little bit more. So I slip it over his nose, hold it tight. And I don't know, this time I just was looking at it a little funny, like I could not figure out how to get it around and situated on his nose. But I really just wanted to be careful that I wasn't letting him just like let it slip off, because we worked really hard to get this on. So I'm trying to just feed it through without losing that tension over the nose while I'm putting it on, because I do not want him to learn that if he can tip his nose, if he can protest, the leash comes off. So it's really important for me to be the one taking the leash off. Now I secure it with the safety or with the stopper, and then we're going back right to the exercises we were doing the first time I put this on. So we're walking out, backing up, tiny bit of leash pressure. People do not give enough credit. I will say it till I am blue in the face. We do not give enough credit to how sensitive dogs are. We are so quick to put on electric collars and big prong collars and shove our dog's hips down into a sit, but dogs are very sensitive creatures. And so we can teach them to be responsive off little tiny bits of pressure if we make those little tiny bits of pressure mean something. Like right there, I mean, there was almost slack in the leash. He was so soft to it. So Jaxx really just needs a ton of reps, really slowed down, keeping him really soft so that we don't have to keep adding more and more muscle to keep him alert and paying attention. And you can see he's starting to move off of my space even a little bit more, which is also what we were working on the long line. So I'm just moving him more into a pack drive position where he is at my hip and walking behind me. And I'm kind of starting to ask him to hold his own space up. And here I'm going to ask for a calm, quiet sit. Now, when I ask for a calm, quiet sit, I usually do not tell dogs to sit. But Jaxx has really good obedience, and I want to keep him successful. I want to keep him confident about what we are asking him to do. So I offer the sit command to just help him understand the leash pressure up means you need to put your body in a sit. So here I am just wrapping up our leash. I am getting my leashes just all organized so that I have both if I need them, in case this one were to slip off or fall off, because we don't have the safety on this collar like other collars usually do. For this last section, I am just going to show you what this looks like from my perspective. So he's been doing really well in the space that we've been working, but ultimately the owner wants to take him for a walk. So we're going to start to move away from that section we were practicing everything in. I'm working on keeping him nice and soft and slow. I have 2 leashes because I don't have a safety clip on the blue leash, and I don't trust him to not pull this off because I know he's done it before and I've seen him do it before. So I just have our backup leash just in case. So I'm keeping nice light leash pressure. I'm asking him to come towards me and then behind me. If he thrashes and throws his head, I'm just going to lift up, wait, and hold until he relaxes. I want to teach him that like when he's thrashing like that, when he's protesting, when he's throwing his head around, it doesn't get him anywhere. Nothing changes, nothing happens. He's not in trouble, but it doesn't change what is being asked of him. So we're just going to walk around. As long as he's in a nice easy heel, we're just going to keep moving forward, adding in some scoop ups where he is moving away from me as I turn towards him, and then also adding in some figure 8s where I back up, I bring him behind me, making sure that he's turning towards me. He really likes to do a turn away. He likes to do a little spin move. So I just want to help him turn towards me, because that turn away from me, like he was just trying to do, really increases his defense drive and his ability to be motivated by anything that's not me, and I want him to be motivated by me. I want to build that pack drive up. So thanks so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. Jaxx has 3 more sessions with me. Hopefully I will get to record each of them so you guys can see his progress. But I really, just with him, am working on building a lot of that pack drive up and that sensitivity so that he is nice and soft to leash pressure. Here's that spin move I was telling you about. I really want him to turn towards me, just like that. Beautiful.
Okay.
Guys, thanks so much for watching and happy training.